Welcome to the Monday Morning Wake Up Call with your host, Kerry Ramage, managing broker at Remax Elite, and Heather Holiday, your social marketing nut, talking about hottest real estate topics with a little weekly activity and motivation for the week.
So we have a new intro, obviously.
Oh my! Yeah, I have to fix because I don't like the way the sound just cuts off. It needs to fade more, and I don't know. I love when we were doing the sitting down thing, but gosh, that's just like so unflattering.
Oh God, I was looking at myself and I thought, I guess it's a good thing I gave up this whole let's not do video because I'd like to lose some weight before we do thing, but whatever. It is what it is. I'm like, we've been saying that all year. We are who we are, I
just look at like when I had gained so much weight when I had that pizza addiction. And that's like, whenever I see memories from like 2015 and 2016.
Hungry Howie's.
I was Domino's.
Oh, were you? I thought you did Hungry Howie's too.
No, I do love Hungry Howie's, but no, it was Domino's. Domino's was what I went to hypnotherapy when we had to do that with Jess to find out while you're here, we can do something. And I'm like, I have a problem with pizza. And I kind of get this weird look and I'm like, I'm not kidding. I do.
Oh, and that's awesome.
Thank God. I mean, it's bad when you have to like hide it, or when you go to Publix and the delivery driver, 402 Seahorse. You may have a problem. Or, when Leo's always picking on me because I have Domino's way too many days. So I only get enough that I can eat it before he gets home.
And so you wouldn't have to, so you wouldn't have to hear the comments. That's hilarious.
And then he would be like so impressed. So he would order Domino's. Already been here today. I have to get the door. Whoa, but luckily I don't, and we only have one pizza place that even delivers up here. So, and I could care less about, if it's something quick and easy, we'll do a freezer pizza, but I could care less about pizza.
So
I could have a bowl of cereal instead. But yeah, it was really bad there. And I could tell by the pictures how, I ate pizza every day. It was super, oh my gosh, it was really bad. But it's a great morning. It's Monday morning. We've got an absolutely beautiful week.
Yeah. I'm getting a little lag on the video, but yeah, it is. It's Monday. You had a great week. I, on the other hand, worked all weekend. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we talk about 5 reasons why a buyer may choose you. Because I was with one set of buyers, and then I had a listing where we had multiple offers. And like I explained to the sellers, I always like to take their feelings into consideration, the buyers, because it's such a stressful time. Such a stressful time for everybody, really. Everybody thinks, oh, well, the seller's getting multiple offers. But you worry, are we choosing the right offer? Are you choosing the right offer for the right reasons? That's probably a whole show. I could probably write a script for that. Are you choosing the right offer for the right reasons? I'll have to replay this so I don't forget that.
I'll remind you.
Yeah. So here's the big question. Would you hire you? Would you hire you to be your buyer's agent? Are you giving to your buyers what you would expect from someone else? And hopefully as an agent, you had the experience to be able to buy a home prior to being in real estate. Really so that you could understand the transaction from a person who doesn't do it all day, every day's standpoint. That's the one thing I always, sometimes we forget, like we do this every day. And, I have sellers and when we were talking about the process, he said, I haven't done this in 13 years. And it's like, it's a reminder, right? So with the buyers, the same thing. Are you working through the whole transaction with them, letting them know what to expect. So the first is make sure you're serving your client, not the transaction. And we've talked about this many times, how much this is about the personal connection, and less about selling the house or the transaction. You want to make sure that you are representing them and you're negotiating for them aggressively the best way that you can. But at the same time, you are, if they need their hand held, you're holding their hand, you're making that connection with them, you're letting them know it's about them and an end result, but an end result that they're happy in, that they want to be in, you know?
That is just answering your phone. I mean, right now it's so stressful for everyone involved, especially if you're a buyer, if you're a newer buyer, you know, first time home buyer. I mean, this market is crazy, but I think, you know, explaining the process and remembering it's not something that they're doing every day like it is what you, just so that they know what to expect and aren't coming in with false, you know, pretenses of what the process is going to be. Making sure, you know, they have all their ducks in a row so that when they do find something, they're ready to go as well. There's a lot of things that I think we can do, but also just know that being mindful of what their situation is, what, you know, so that it's not just a transaction. They don't feel like a number or just a dollar sign, making sure that they know that you have their best interest at heart.
Well, and it reminds me of what one of my business coaches used to say: always be curious, always be curious, always be asking the questions. So as you're making this about the customer or the client, depending on what they are, and not the transaction, make sure you're asking them the questions of just what are their pain points? What are they nervous about? What are they anxious about? What do they love in a house? What, you know, always be asking, always be curious, you know, let them do the talking, so to speak.
And I know even moving up here, you know, I talked to several agents and, you know, they put you on the email alert for listings. And the ones that would send me something that had absolutely nothing to do with what I was looking for, just, I don't even know what search they put in, but they were sending me like 2-bedroom homes. I'm like, do you remember the fact that I need 4 bedrooms? Why are you sending me these 2-bedroom, 900 square foot houses that make absolutely no sense to what I'm looking for?
Well, and you know, what's interesting, because I always tell buyers when they give me their list, there's certain things that if you were to narrow that in the MLS, if an agent who's putting the listing in isn't filling in the listing fully, then that would negate many, many properties. You know, just say, for example, you want a fence. A fence is not a required field. So if the agent doesn't put in that there's a fence and there is a fence, you would rule that out because you put in a fence. So I always try to explain to the buyers, you're going to get more than you want. But I mean, 2-bedroom instead of 4-bedroom, that's a no-brainer. But you're going to get more than you want. I'd rather you see more, narrow it down, than us rule out something that would have been perfect because the listing agent didn't put in the correct information in the field.
But I do think, you know, buyers that they, you know, when they get all these things that don't even match what it's, I know from our side how, you know, you can set somebody up for the prospecting, but, you know, some consumers may think I know when I would set somebody up, oh my gosh, you're working so hard. You're always sending me these listings. So the consumers don't know, you're just kind of setting up something. So if you don't explain that situation, but still to constantly be getting these 2-bedroom homes, I'm like, dude, you know, I know.
Clearly you weren't paying attention to me.
But I feel like, did you even pay attention to our conversation? So enough with that, just, okay, you can just remove me because I'm better off just going on Zillow or Redfin or whatever to find what I'm actually looking for. You're cluttering my email with all this stuff that has nothing to do with what I actually need. And I think you being able to explain how that process works, you know, they just set me up on a drip, but the regular consumer doesn't know how that actually works.
Right. Well, it's funny. I set myself up on a drip for a search so that I understood what they were getting as the consumer. And so that when you get it, and you open it up and you can, I can see what they're seeing. I mean, I don't, because when you set up a consumer on a drip, you get an email as well, but what we get as the agent looks different from what they get. So I set myself up on a drip as if I am a consumer so I can understand what they're getting, which I think is helpful,
Absolutely. Especially, I mean, if you're looking for a buyer, especially in this crazy market, you need to be looking at those to see what just came up or what's coming soon. You need to set it up as an agent to be able to get the coming soons. I mean, I think setting up those prospects to be able to get that information in the coming soon, that we can set it up so on an agent level, we can see the coming soon.
Right.
I guess
and that's a big deal. Yes. So, and that's a big deal too, because it's interesting. I put a listing on the market as coming soon on Monday, and I got some calls from agents and some consumers, and it was going to go live on Saturday. And some made appointments, but honestly, not as many people made appointments as I thought would have in advance. So when it went live at 12:01 a.m. on Saturday morning, when we woke up Saturday morning, we had a bunch of showing requests because I'm suspecting people did not have their drip set up correctly and they did not add the coming soon category to the drip.
So that's something, I mean, that's crucial. I mean, that's a matter of getting that appointment and knowing what's coming available, because those coming soons could be almost 30 days out, correct?
Yeah, correct. 21 days is in our market, as long as you can do it coming soon. So, if you really want to keep track of that, you have to have that set up in the drip, And
having that is going to, I think, make your life as a buyer's agent a little easier. Instead of that Saturday, you're getting that call, this one just hit the market. Had you set yourself up to know when these coming soons were coming up, you would know about this, way before.
And then you can plan it. It wouldn't be Saturday morning at 8 a.m. and your client's calling you, we need to see this today. And in this case, there was already 15 appointments every half hour booked. So now you're not able to see it within your schedule, So yeah, that's a great point. So
that's a good idea. So make sure everyone's doing that.
Right.
I mean, it's a win-win for everybody involved.
Agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
Time management.
Agree. So then the next is go beyond just the purchase and offer your help with all things related to the house. And it's funny, this is non-real estate related, but it's just a funny story about that. My best friend from high school, her father passed away several years ago, and her siblings and she were here for the funeral, and they were staying at a hotel, and anytime they wanted something, like, where should we go for Italian food? Where should we go for this? What should we do for this? And then the sister was like, you're like the Brevard County concierge. And I said, well, one, I've lived here a very long time, but I have clients who still will text me and go, where should I get my hair done? And it's funny, I had one recently who lived in the southern part of the county ask me where she could get her hair done. And I said, well, I get my hair done in the middle of the county. And she was like, oh, I don't care where. And then I asked a couple of friends who live in the southern part of the county, where do you get your hair done? Because, I liked their hair and I thought it would be a good recommendation. And two of them were like, I get my hair done in your part of the county.
And that's true. My agent, so she did, amazing. But it really ended up being someone that the listing agent had hired somebody to do something that was in the inspection, right? So we had their contact information to get this done after we had moved up and stuff like that. And that person is still my go-to, and it's almost been 2 years. Yeah. And they ended up, they're the ones that did my whole she shed. So they're getting business for me. I recommend them. And it's really a lot about, it's like anything you want to know. I've lived here my whole life. We know everything. Yeah. So I'm always like, okay, I'm looking to do this, or I need this and this. And she always responds. They've been amazing. And you should be that person as the agent.
Exactly. Because that's a reason for your customer to keep coming back to you. And it's another reason for you to continually engage, when you're.
Absolutely. Because it has nothing to do with real estate, but I'm looking, I don't know, especially for someone who's new to the area, be that resource. Know that you will never bother me. If you have any questions about this or that, I am your go-to.
Well,
Let me know.
it's funny. I even have a guy I went to high school with. So obviously he's been here a long time, but he needed some plumbing work done. And he texts me and says, "Hey, who's your plumber?" And I was like, "Oh, hey, good to hear from you." And I had just sold a property to another high school friend. And I was like, "Oh, he said, have you kept in touch with anyone else?" And I said, "Oh, I just spoke with so-and-so. I just sold her a house." And he's like, "Oh, tell her I said hi when you see her. But he was calling for a plumber.
I mean, it's so important. Be that resource for them after the sale. It's really a no-brainer.
Yep. Yes, exactly. And make yourself available. I hate to say that we are attached to our phones, and I hate to suggest we should be more attached than we already are. But, if you have your phone handy and they're texting you or calling you, answer that text, pick up that call.
Yeah.
The next is create a plan and include them in the plan. So whatever plan you have that you work with your buyers, if you don't have a checklist of everything you need to go through with them, you probably should. So, and just a list of items that maybe I have a buyer right now. She's in California. They do real estate differently in California than we do here, and I always have to remember, when we say 10-day inspection, that's your done date. We don't get to negotiate after that date. You have to decide what you want in those 10 days. And this is kind of going back to make sure you're serving the client, not the transaction. We put a property under contract, and in California they call it, the property's in escrow. We don't really use that term here. And did the home inspection, and then she decided to cancel, and she was mortified to tell me that she wanted to cancel and afraid that I would be upset. And I was like I told your partner, I told him, he's here, she's there, which is kind of hard, but whatever you want, if this takes us a year, it takes us a year. That's ultimately, and I'll say, if I'm being honest, that's not my goal here, but if it takes us a year, it takes us a year. We're going to find you the right house. And especially in a time like this, where there's so much competition, you don't want to, feel like someone rushed into a home or something. So make sure you're going through the plan and what to expect for them, especially if they're coming from a different state. There's so many lawyer states out there. We don't use attorneys here. Generally, as a rule, we use a title company, and we use just one, because in some other states they use two. So just make sure that you have the plan, you know how the process works, and you're including your customer in that. They know what to expect.
And I remember when we went to Terry Watson, and it was all about your expectations for the consumers. And he had this whole sheet of, this could happen, what could go wrong, or what, it was fully about, if you relay to your clients what could happen, then there's no surprises. So having that checklist of expectations.
Because he had a comedic spin on it, which was funny. He would say, someone is going to knock, from a listing standpoint, someone will see the sign and knock on your door and ask to come in.
Someone will leave the lights on after a showing.
Or a buyer is going to use your bathroom. Well, if you don't want people to use your bathrooms, tell me now so we can put a sign on them. And with that, I always say to my sellers, but why would you not want them to use the bathroom? The longer they're in your house, looking around, deciding that they love it, the better. And if they're going from house to house to house and they have to stop at the 7-Eleven to use a bathroom, it just messes with the flow, Same thing with leave your air conditioning on. I don't care if you're not living there. If we go in the house and it's hot, we're all going to be cranky, and we're probably not going to stay in that house that long. But I also, on the flip side, I tell my buyers the same thing. We may go in some houses where they won't let us use the bathroom. So let's make sure we're stopping on the way if we need to. So silly, but it's things you don't think about till it happens, or we may go in houses where the water's been turned off, so let's make sure we're communicating about your needs while we're out there looking at houses. But, or just just how the whole process is going to happen, and really, you're right. What could go wrong? Let's make sure we talk about it. Could we do a home inspection and the seller has turned the gas off and now we can't check the appliances? I mean, that's happened. But you know what? We'll overcome the hurdle. We'll get the gas turned on. We try and make sure it's all done. But sometimes a seller goes rogue and they think, oh, I don't live there anymore. Let me turn off all the utilities. And it's like, no. Or you'll go to the final walkthrough and all the utilities will be off. And then you're like, you can't test anything. And it's funny, it wasn't a final walkthrough. My buyer wanted to measure, and we went through the property, and actually the seller did do a smart thing. They turned off all the breakers. But having said that, that meant the refrigerator was not cooling, and they left the doors to the refrigerator open. And this was not a cheap refrigerator. I mean, they didn't leave them open. So I opened up the doors, and then I got the permission of the listing agent to turn the breakers on, but that there were no batteries in the thermostat, which reminds me, I need to remind Peggy, I need 2 batteries to bring to the final walkthrough tomorrow so we can check the thermostat, make sure the thing works. But these are the types of things that happen that are unexpected and can be frustrating,
No, absolutely. And then just representing their needs when you are showing their properties. And I think we kind of covered a little bit about this is,
Yep.
Just finding things to count on when you're finding the house that fits their needs.
Exactly. But on the flip side, it's funny. People will say, I absolutely don't want a pool. And then they'll find a house that has a pool, but it's the house that they want. And then they'll take the pool. So it's such a dance, and it's just to make sure you're always, and I always explain to my buyers, you may say you absolutely have a fence, but you might find the house you love and it doesn't have a fence, and all you have to do is put the fence in. Mm-hmm. You might find you absolutely don't want a pool, but you found the house you love and there's a pool there. And so you have a pool, and sometimes people will say that because they have children. Well, we live in Florida. Your children need to learn how to swim because there's water everywhere. And they make gates to go up in the pool to protect the pool and kids from getting in the pool. So it's always, making sure that you know what their needs are. I had buyers once, and they would both come with a notebook and take notes in every single house we went to. And I would know that it wasn't the house for them, but they still would take copious notes about everything, I guess, so that they would go back later and know. And it was funny. I knew he was an engineer, but we never discussed what she did for a living. And at one time we were talking, and the subject came up, and he said, I bet you don't know what she does for a living. And I said, I bet you she's an engineer as well. And he said, how do you know? And I said, because you both took notes. That never happens.
I'm not an engineer, but I always would take notes on the listing sheet. But I mean, basically would be a big, no, not even there.
Right.
Or just the ones I like because I even do that now when we go out riding. I sit there and I have in my notes on my phone because Leo's like, what are you doing? Like,
you take notes of what areas you like and stuff?
Yeah. So I always write, like every time we go out for a ride, I write every single trail. And then I write a little note about that trail. So I know, hey, let's do this route because it was.
Oh, that's funny.
So
what's
Leo
that
now
trail that you have up there that you used to go up to go? That's all the turns, Dragon or Devil or something. What is it?
Well, that's Deal's Gap, the Dragon. That's like so commercialized now, but where we go four-wheeling is actually the Devil's Triangle ride. So it's not as commercialized, and we always took the motorcycles up there, but that's basically where we go riding and where the prison is or whatever. But
I was at a seller's house this weekend, and he's been everywhere in the country on his motorcycle, and he was talking about the Dragon.
The Dragon it's so crazy how different it is from 25 years ago.
When you
now they have, I think, 3 or 4 different people that take your photo corner. And it's just, you have motorcycle groups, you have car groups, you have fancy car groups, you have old car groups. It's just so commercialized. I try to avoid it now just because, it is like this, but it's, I'm always trying to pull over because I don't want to mess with someone's, trying to fly through there.
Right.
craziness.
Right.
Not what it used to be.
Yeah, that's everything. That's everything. It's too much. Like I always say, there's not a travel city you can go to that doesn't have a Senor Frog anymore, and it's like, oh, you can't, I used to like going places where you could go and you would get the local food or the local restaurant or and everything's really become so commercialized. Anyway, that's as an aside. So, like we said, represent their needs when showing the properties. And then lastly, make sure you're there long after the closing. And that kind of ties back to the go beyond and the purchase and offer help. But long after the closing, make sure you're staying in touch with them. That is, I think, one of the biggest things that agents miss. And we all say, oh, do you have a CRM? Do you have a CRM? And then people say, well, what CRM should I use? Well, the one that you will use is the one you should use. So we're the worst at keeping in contact. And that's really, because that is where you're going to get so many of your referrals, or when they're ready to sell, you don't want to look on the MLS and see a house you had listed that you sold them and it's listed with someone else. You want to make sure they're calling you. And it's funny. So the transaction I was saying, he said, oh, I haven't done this in 13 years. His agent that sold him the house was John Murphy. And John moved to Pennsylvania. And so he referred it to me, but it was like, 13 years later, they're calling John. The other listing I'm selling, same thing. I think they were 2007. And they called John, and John referred it to me, So he did a great job, clearly, of keeping in touch with them after the transaction.
That's so important. I mean, it's so important. I know Jared James was talking about that at R4, but it's super important to stay in touch with somebody after the sale, especially if you enjoyed that transaction. I mean, it's so much easier just to contact with somebody that already knows, likes, and trusts you.
Exactly.
Their referrals than it is fishing for new business people who don't even know you. And, it drives me nuts how many people don't have, it doesn't even have to be a CRM. They don't even have like a spreadsheet. They don't have anything with their past. It's like,
I know.
I just want to slap them.
I know. I mean, there's so many tools out there that, like, I use this one, the personal marketing company, TPMC, and they say, I don't know how often they send postcards, but for $25, and actually, if you buy 4, you get 1 free. So you'll get 5 packages, but for $25, I think they send your customer client something quarterly for 5 years. So and it costs, so if you buy 5 of them, it costs you $20 to stay in touch with somebody for 5 years.
That's like a no-brainer. I mean, it should be, the text, the video emails. I mean, I know we're always saying this, just stuff that's more personal.
Yep.
But at least
so don't rely on just that, because that's somewhat impersonal, but it is an extra touch.
It's just something, like the emails that, you may do the monthly emails or whatever, but add the little personal touch. But it's just little things like that really can make a huge difference.
Yeah. That'll keep you at the top of mind when they decide it's time to sell. They're going to call you, and because they knew, liked, and trusted John. This is interesting, because the husband of one of the couples said this to me, and he said, I have so much respect for John. He handled our transaction so well, and I completely trust him. And the fact that he recommended you means I completely trust you. Which is awesome, because I remember a year ago, I did a transaction. It was a referral from another agent in the office. She was on Memorial Day weekend, and I worked with these buyers that were from from Zillow, and it was tough, man. And they trusted me, but we didn't quite have that same rapport that you have with someone that you have.
Because it takes time to build that relationship.
Yeah.
So, it's just a no-brainer. So if you haven't worked on that database, that's real estate 101, honestly. And sometimes we just get so bombarded with, everything else going on that you're in. This is your business.
Exactly.
That was last week, the longevity part of it. This is your business, so treat it like a business.
Yeah, which is what we talked about last week. So yeah, I mean, it all kind of all of the topics we talk about, they all, come together and interchange for sure. So just to recap, you're serving the client, not the transaction. You're going beyond the purchase and to help them with things that may not even be house related. Maybe they need a hairdresser or they want to know where to get their nails done. You're creating the plan. So you should have the same plan for every buyer transaction, for every seller transaction, and you're including them in that plan. You're representing their needs when you're out showing properties. So it's not about you and what the end result for us is, which is, for us, it's getting paid. I mean, granted, we do this so that we can get paid, but we also do this because we love our jobs and we like making connections with people. And make sure that you are there long after the closing. I think those are all no-brainers. And if you're doing that with every transaction, unless you have one where maybe the personalities didn't mesh. I don't know. Maybe then you don't want to stay in contact.
Right. No, absolutely. And not everyone will jive, but make sure the ones that you did, and most of the time you will have that connection, but those are the ones you want. They're friends because they're, like-minded probably. So
exactly.
You want to do that. And what's the weekly activity?
So when you're faced with stressful situations this week, find your happy place and focus on nothing or engage in something that requires your attention. So if you're at that stressful point, kind of there's Kelsey, find your happy place, get there and focus on that. Put your phone away. Try to get, whatever's going wrong out of your brain. I mean, I have this Calm is what it's called. And it comes up and it reminds me to just take a moment and meditate for 5 minutes. But whatever that is, if that means sitting on the side of the mountain and looking at, at the view, or going down to the beach. I mean, sometimes when I'm showing property beachside, I'll just stop and pull into one of the little beach things and put my toes in the sand. Or I have a spot that I like to go. If I'm down in Palm Bay or Grant, I always say I like to drive US 1 back to Suntree because I like to just be on US 1 and see the river. And there's this one spot, I think it's called Castaway Cove in the northern part of Palm Bay. I always pull off. I take a minute, I put my phone, first I take a picture so I can post it on Facebook.
There's lots of Pokemon there too,
I know that. Well, I do. Well, so if I'm being honest, I pull over into Castaway Cove, I take a picture so I can post it on Facebook. I do my Pokemon, and then I put the phone away for 5 minutes.
I called it.
Pokemon is part of my happy place, I have to say. How embarrassing.
So Castaway and then the O'Galley Library.
Yeah, yes, correct. And again, same thing though. The view there is amazing. There's nice park benches to sit at. I mean, we live in, or you don't live here anymore, but you live in an amazing place. We live in an amazing place. There's not a time that I don't go over the bridge or the causeway to get to the other side that I don't look around and say, gosh, I live in a beautiful place. Let me not take this for granted.
Yeah, it was funny because when we were twice this weekend, we went to a place because finally the outside deck of this restaurant, like the tiki bar area, was open and they kind of had like a little band. But of course, Jesse's like waiting for the dolphin or the manatees or something. Like, yeah, we don't have those, so we just have to watch the boats coming in and out of the marina. Like, pretty sure you're not going to see dolphin or manatees.
Right.
But still, just water's just water. It's just so soothing, and that was super nice to be able to do that finally.
Right.
After almost 2 years, and all that fun stuff. But the words of wisdom this week, I thought it was super deep though. But it's like our thoughts become our words become our actions become our character, and our character becomes our destiny. And that's Gandhi.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Pretty deep, right?
I will, which, and let me just go back. It reminds me to one of the counseling sessions I have with my clients once we go under contract. So when we signed the contract last night for this listing, and the house they're buying is contingent on this house selling. So it's a little stressful. And we had 4 offers and they wanted to make sure they picked the right one. But the husband is a worrier. And I said to him, I have to give you my speech. My speech is, whatever you're worrying about, you're going to worry it into happening. So please let me be the worrier. You have things you have to do. You need to get this house packed up. We're remodeling your new house. You need to decide what you need to do there. Don't worry about the transaction. That's what I'm here for, because you will worry it into happening.
Right. That's so true, though.
Yeah.
That's so true.
I know.
Well, I think that's about it for this week. So until next week, wake up, kick ass, and repeat. And we'll get next week's show. Hopefully I won't wait till Saturday to put it out there. This week kind of flew by for me. I was like, what?
Right? I know. Oh, yeah. Time is flying. It's May, everybody. It's May of 2020.
I know. It's insane. It's like flying by, but it's all good. It's all good. Spring is here. The weather's warm, and oh my gosh, it's so beautiful out. So everyone have a great week. We'll see you next week.